Today's video is a very personal one because I'm going to be spilling some very personal details about myself, and from the title you can already tell what it is. I'm going to be sharing with you guys on how I dealt with my childhood traumas, faced my fears, reconciled with my inner child, and took back control of my life. This episode was inspired when a dear friend came to me and shared a complaint or a struggle she was having or facing in her relationship with her partner. And after we sat through the conversation and I helped her analyze the whole situation, we discovered that the major problem in her relationship today is due to some very specific unhealed traumas in her life. And after I explained it to her, made it very clear, she quickly realized how what happened to her many years ago is coming to bite her in her ass right now as an adult. So of course I helped her, I walked her through the process. I was her therapist or psychologist in quotes, and it was a very helpful process because it made her realize quite a number of things, and she's way on her journey to healing her traumas. So I just thought it best to come and share my own traumas with you all and how I dealt with it, just in case someone is carrying the baggage of unhealed childhood traumas. This is a very vulnerable moment for me, but I'm going to try my best to go through the entire episode without feeling emotionally awkward. Okay? Now, before I begin, I'd like to say that a lot of adults are living with unhealed childhood traumas. They're suffering from major unhealed childhood traumas. And most often than not, these unhealed traumas are hampering with their adulthood. And some of them are not even aware that the battles that they are fighting in their adult years is due to the fact that they haven't faced and confronted their childhood traumas. So I hope that this episode will not only give you insight into what my traumas were, but it would also help you look into your own life, figure out what traumas you may have experienced in the past, and then find your own way of dealing with it. Now, childhood traumas occur from different reasons like bad parenting, a dysfunctional family system, when you're bullied in school, loss of a parent or sibling at an early age, sexual abuse, poverty, finding yourself in a very poor environment, or being brought up in a very poor background. There's so many factors that contribute to traumas, and those are just some of them. And then some effects of childhood traumas look something like a big lack of confidence when you have become an adult. You have very low self-esteem. Literally, sometimes people don't know that their low self-esteem stems from the fact that they haven't healed their childhood traumas. When you always face situations from a place of aggression, you always want to fight, you always want to be defensive at every instance or at every situation, it means you must have an unhealed childhood trauma that you have to deal with. Another effect of childhood traumas in your adult years can look something like you running away from conflicts. Another one is you're having dysfunctional relationships with your partner, with your friends. You can't just be friends or be in a relationship with anyone peacefully. There's always some form of problems that erupts. And the final one that I put down here on my list is that childhood trauma showcases itself in your adult years in form of timidity and shyness. Of course, there's so many other negative effects of childhood traumas, but these are some of the most popular ones. Now, for me personally, I've had my fair share of childhood traumas that continued to affect me aggressively as I started to grow up into an adult, until one day I said, enough is enough. Guys, I literally confronted the traumas and I healed from each and every one of them. Now, I'm going to share some of my childhood traumas with you. Like I said, this is a very personal moment, but it's okay. Now, the very first childhood trauma that I know that I dealt with or I had to deal with was not having quality parental guidance, especially because I lost my dad at an early age, very early. And we were 7 of us, we're 7 children. My mom was saddled with the responsibility of taking care of 7 children. We're 3 girls and 4 boys. Now, at that time, All she could think about was putting a roof over our head and putting food on our plates and ensuring that we got good quality education. My mom literally became the man of the house. She had to take on the responsibility of a man and became a literal hustler. She would leave the house very early in the morning and come back late at night, just so that she could provide. I consider my mom literally one of the strongest women alive, because taking care of 7 children single-handedly, it's no small feat at all. But there was a negative side to it, because whilst my mom was doing the job or playing the responsibility or the role of a father by trying to provide and ensure that we had food and we went to school, there were certain valuable trainings that I should have gotten as a child that I didn't get. Of course, I don't blame my mom for it. Trust me, like I said, it's not easy having 7 people to take care of. But in my formative years, or in our formative years, there's some valuable trainings and information and knowledge that we're supposed to have gotten. I know that I didn't get it. And that affected me so much growing up into an adult, until I realized that that was what was affecting me, and I decided to do something about it by moving, like literally going to, of course, confronting that particular trauma and then finding a solution to the problem. So yeah, that was the very first trauma that I had. And the trainings that I know that I lacked were trainings like training in respect, self-confidence, self-esteem. My mom was not there to teach me these things. Trainings like how to be a girly girl, how to be a woman, like things like that I really didn't get from my mom. Again, like I said, I don't blame her, because she was trying so hard to ensure that we went to school, got food, and had a roof over our head. And that in itself is a huge, huge responsibility. The second trauma that I experienced as a child was I was taken advantage at an early age by men who should have known better. I lost my dad early, like I said, and I was a beautiful young girl, very beautiful young girl. And some men decided that they were going to take advantage of me. Of course, they didn't have their way, because I was also very outspoken from a young age. But just knowing that grown-up men or adults try to take advantage of me in the wrongest of ways. So I'll give an example. When we were going to school one day, my sister and I used to take the public transportation. That's the downfall buses to school. And I remember my sister would always lap me on her lap, because my dad had died and my mom was really trying to take us. So we went through a lot, guys. I'm not even kidding you. And so I remember one particular morning we were going to school, and my sister and I sat at the very back of the downfall bus. And there was this man beside us by the window. My sister and I sat beside him. So my sister lapped me on her laps. So I was leaning towards and bending and holding onto the seat in front of me. The next thing I noticed was a hand. I don't know how that hand slipped right in front of me and started caressing my breasts in public transportation. I remember it so vividly. How the man did it, I don't know. But the man's stupid perv, I'm sorry to say this, it was a stupid perv, put his hand in front. I was just a young girl in GSS2 or something. And he put his hand in front of him and held my breast and started caressing it. At that point, I was like, what's going on? I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know how to process. I didn't even know whether to make a move. I just stayed there for a minute or two. Then when it became weird that this guy was actually going for my boobs, I immediately moved and made a big rigorous move, and I was literally praying that we would get to our bus stop so that we could come down and go to school. I didn't mention that to anyone, but trust me, that made me highly disappointed in the male folks for so long. And of course, I have so many other stories to tell, but that's an example of how a man who was supposed to know better took advantage of me in a public transportation. That definitely scarred my mind, I promise you. Another childhood trauma that I faced was I was bullied in school, because like I said, life happened, and a lot of I had a very low self-esteem. I wasn't confident. I was going to school. I felt very inferior. I had inferiority complex. It was just messy. So I was always bullied in school by the girls who thought they were I remember I would always get punished for things I didn't do. They would laugh at me for putting on funny stockings or looking very I don't even want to go into it. But that definitely scarred my mind. And I also faced rejection. So many instances where of course, I didn't learn the lesson on how to deal with rejection. So when I faced rejection or when anyone rejected me, I felt it deep down in my core. Those were some of the things that I experienced as a child that weren't so palatable. And I tell you that although they may seem insignificant now as an adult, but these things literally caused severe problems in my adult years until I confronted them. Now, for me, my childhood traumas surfaced in my adult years and looked something like I was overly timid and shy. Guys, this girl you see here that is all bold and confident and sassy and whatnot was a timid and highly intimidated and shy lady. I tell you for free. Second thing was I was highly insecure. I wasn't secure in myself. Again, like I said, I had terrible inferiority complex. I didn't think I was good enough, and I believed that everyone else was better than me. Like, I would go into a room with people in it, and I'd be like, I was the odd one out. I was the most insignificant person, and I would give everyone the attention. I would just go hide by the corner of the room so that nobody would notice me or no one. That was how it surfaced in my adult years. Something else was I lacked confidence. I wasn't a confident woman. I was emotionally unintelligent. Guys, I was the girl who would display emotions at any time to anyone without thinking or caring. It was emotional intelligence on a Pro Max level. I can laugh at it now because I have moved on. I've moved over to the other side. I'm no longer there. So another one is that I distanced myself from people and didn't want to make any friends because, again, like I said, I was inferior. I felt inferior rather. I didn't have confidence and I just thought I wasn't worthy enough to have people as my friends. And the final one is I was very overly codependent on my relationship, which made it super duper toxic. Like, super duper toxic. Guys, you guys are not allowed to judge me though, because this is my past. Never bring it up in my future because it has no place there, okay? Before we go on with the video, just a quick reminder that we have a course called the Art of Speaking Eloquently and Elegantly course. It's a course for anyone who wants to improve the way they communicate with themselves and other people in their lives. You can click the link in the description box down below to get more information on how you can access the course, okay? Now, how then did I discover that I had childhood traumas that I needed to heal? It was after a couple of episode after episode of things happening in my life that I didn't like. I sat down one day and I started to look at the patterns of events, and I realized that the patterns of events were kind of like, there was a pattern. Things were happening in the same way. And then I stopped and I was like, no, guys, there is a problem here. And it just dawned on me that there was a problem that needed solution. And that was when I got to work, because I'm not the kind of girl who likes to stay down or who likes to be pity-patted or who likes to be seen in the negative light. I was going to do the work to level up. And level up did I do. So let me share with you how I healed my childhood traumas. So in order not to make this video long, as usual, I'm going to just breeze through each of the points and what I did. And if you want my notes, I can share it on our Telegram platform. Just let me know in the comment section down below if you want me to share my notes with you, and I will. The very first thing that I did was I acknowledged that I had some traumas to deal with. Like I said, I realized that there were patterns of events, there was a pattern that followed everything that happened. And because I wasn't really happy, like I knew the kind of life I wanted, but things were happening in a way that I didn't like and I didn't want. And I was just wondering why. I'm a good person. I have a good heart. Why do all these things keep happening to me? It just didn't make any sense. And then one day I just realized it was actually even a friend who pointed things out that when you have things inside of you that you have not dealt with, that you need to work on. And that was when I realized quickly that there was something. And then immediately I acknowledged that there was something that I had to work on. And I always say to you guys, acknowledging that there's something wrong is 70% of the problem solved. Because until you acknowledge that there is something wrong, there's nothing you can do about it. Okay? The second thing I did was I sought knowledge. I really wanted to know how to deal with my childhood traumas. Guys, I even almost went as far as signing up to go to therapy and hire a psychologist, until a friend of mine told me, no, there's an easier way to do it and you can actually do it yourself. And so he recommended a book called Inner Child Healing by Damien Blair. Guys, that book is a life-changing book, especially when it comes to dealing and healing your inner child. That book, guys, that book literally gave me a blueprint of everything I needed to know on how to heal from my childhood traumas and move on and just enjoy and have a beautiful adult life. So what I did was I got the book and I read it over and over again. I got it in audio form and I got it in e-copy, and I read it over and over and over again. And that book had some very serious exercises that I had to undergo I knew that it was going to be the beginning of a beautiful life for me. The book will make you do things. You're not just reading words. You are going to put into practice what you're doing. And some of the points that I put down here are some of the things that I got from the book. The next thing I did with the guidance of the book, I identified what the traumas were. I assessed them, and then I pinpointed how they were affecting my life as an adult. It was a literal thing. I had a paper and a pen, and I was literally writing out what these traumas were. Before that time, I didn't even know that there was something called trauma. Do you understand? I thought trauma was when you have experienced like maybe accidents or somebody. No, traumas come in different forms, shape, and sizes, and I didn't know until that day. So I took a pen and started to write out what I felt or believed were my own traumas and how they were affecting me. The next thing I did was I confronted my inner child. I remember this day like it was yesterday, but it was a long time ago. I was in my bedroom and I was reading the book, and the book said it was time for an exercise. So the book literally gave instructions on how I was going to confront my inner child. I was going to call her forth into my presence. Like I literally called young baby Winnie into my presence. That young girl who lacked direction, who needed answers to questions that she had in her mind, but there was no one there to provide the answers. That girl who needed and yearned, who wanted training, who wanted somebody to guide her, who wanted some form of inspiration, who went through some form of life challenges that she wasn't supposed to go through by herself, and it was hard for her to deal with it, but she dealt with it. That inner child, that young Winnie was broken. She was sad, and I felt her, I saw her, and I literally had to acknowledge her pain, acknowledge that she was confused, she was hopeless. Literally, it was that deep. It was so deep, I had tears in my eyes for days. So I literally acknowledged her pain, and then I had to tell her that everything she experienced was not her fault. It was definitely not her fault. It was an intense emotional session, and I'm just thinking back at it, it's almost bringing back tears into my eyes. But I remember that after I was done comforting her, it wasn't something that happened so quickly. It took about, I think, 2, 3, 4 hours. I was there just reminiscing, going back and remembering all those times when I needed support, guidance, help. I was confused. I just looked like I just needed someone to be there for me, and there was no one there. And we went through it together. I still knew she was there with me. We went through it together, and definitely, finally, we came through to an agreement, and I apologized to her, told her to forgive me for not paying her any attention when I became an adult, told her to forgive the people who hurt her, and she agreed and she forgave. Guys, this was literal stuff. I'm not even kidding you. Sounds weird, but this was a very important part of the entire process of healing my childhood traumas. And I remember that I felt a big dose of relief after I had that experience with that young Winnie. And I felt like she was happy with me again. And then she let me go, and she stopped crying on the inside of me and stopped showcasing herself in ways that I didn't want her to showcase herself as an adult. So she literally set me free, and I was liberated. And that for me was the literal start of the entire journey. It it was deep stuff. So I'm not even explaining it well. But maybe when you read that book, you would have a better understanding of what I experienced with little Winnie. But it was a very liberating experience, guys. The next thing I had to do to heal from my childhood traumas was I had to forgive everyone I felt ever offended me in my past. How I did that intentionally was I wrote down a list of everyone I felt wronged me in my past. Those who insulted me, disrespected me, molested me, made me feel less of a woman. So anyone I felt like I was, that did something wrong, I wasn't bearing any grudges against them, but I realized that there was a part of me that was still holding on to what they did to me in the past, and I had to let go, break free, and move on with my pretty life. And what made that forgiveness process or journey a whole lot easier for me was I had to remind myself that people are at different stages or phase in their lives as well. And people can only give you what they have. So the people who are expected to have done more for me only gave me what they had. And to be honest, what they had at the time was their best. It may not have been enough for my welfare or for my overall well-being or my growth, but it was their best, and I needed to acknowledge that. And for the people who hurt me, how I was able to forgive them so easily was I also realized that people are at different level in their in what they know. Their knowledge level, people's knowledge level are different at different points in their lives. So I said to myself, if they knew better, they would have done better. And perhaps they didn't know any better. That's why they did what they did. And because of that, I showed them some empathy, I accorded them some grace, and I forgave them just so that I could move on. I needed to move on. It was important that I moved on, and I did. The next thing that I did was I also forgave myself for the role I played in not acknowledging it so quickly that I had things to deal with and staying angry at the wrong people, at the wrong things, and the role that I played in hurting people. Maybe I hurt them consciously or unconsciously because I had things that I was dealing with. I had to also forgive myself very, very quickly, and so that I could free up my energy, I could free up space, and continue to forge ahead with my life. The next thing I did was I took action into my own hands, and I started working on myself by learning everything I should have been taught as a young girl, and just pouring things into pouring knowledge into my life, like I literally embedded myself on Level Up Pro Max. Let me put it that way. I wanted to get everything because I felt I should have gotten it back then, but it's better late than never, right? So I engulfed into self-development. I started reading books, started attending seminars, started watching videos. I built my confidence. I just did everything. I was angry at where I was, and I knew that I deserved better. So I went forward and I got better. No excuses. I made up my mind that no one was responsible for where I was at. It was my full responsibility. I stopped blaming my mom. I stopped blaming my dad for dying. I stopped blaming my brothers and my sisters. I stopped blaming anyone. I stopped the blame game. I took full responsibility, and I went forth and I got knowledge, and I started to improve myself day in, day out, constantly and always, until I became a better version of myself. Of course, I'm still on that journey because we are still learning every day, but I'm grateful at the progress that I have made so far. Something else I did was I mastered the art of emotional intelligence. I mastered the art of setting and respecting boundaries. That's setting my own boundaries and respecting other people's boundaries. I mastered the art of showing empathy and being an alive human in all ramifications. So I became more emotionally intelligent. I had to go and learn what the concept is. If you haven't seen our video on emotional intelligence, you should go check it out. I think it was uploaded last week. Check it out and watch just in case you want to start your emotional intelligence journey. It's a good place to start. I literally mastered the art of emotional intelligence, respecting my other people's boundaries, setting my own boundaries, showing empathy. I mastered the art, and I started to live it out in flesh and blood every day. And trust me, guys, trust me, I'll tell you how the result turned out afterwards. And finally, what I did also was I developed a passionate relationship with God. I've always been a God lover, a Jesus girl, a Jesus baby, a Jesus girly, whatever you want to call it. But after I discovered this new fresh revelation and inspiration about myself, I took my relationship with God to a whole new level. God is literally my daddy now. I lost my earthly father long ago, but trust me when I say that I still have a dad, and he's God Almighty, who is with me every step of the way, because he has promised me that he will never leave me nor forsake me. So now I developed an intimate relationship with God, and our relationship is one that can never ever be broken. So those are all of the steps that I used or I did to heal my childhood traumas, and some of the steps that I just pointed out, like I said, I got from the book Inner Child Healing by Damien Blair. I highly recommend that book for anyone who is on a journey to discovering what their childhood traumas are and how they can heal themselves from it. And so the final part of this episode, of course, this story will not be over until a victory parade is made. And my victory parade is going to be in form of the results that I now experience in my life after healing from my childhood traumas and confronting my inner child. One thing I started to notice, guys, I started enjoying better quality relationships. I'm not just talking relationships with the opposite sex now. I'm talking relationships with my mother, my brothers, my sisters, my friends, my co-workers, my team members. Relationships in general became a whole lot more interesting and exciting, and it's all thanks to the fact that I healed my inner child. The second one is I started attracting the best of what life could offer in terms of rich, beautiful, grand life experiences. Life became fresher. I wanted to wake up every day. Like, I looked forward to every morning because I have to live this life, guys. This life is for living. I am a free girl. Next thing that happened was I became bolder and more confident. You can see it in me. That young girl that was once timid, shy, and very intimidated became the most confident, bold, courageous person that can stand in front of anyone and do the damn thing. I'm literally basking in my confidence and I'm loving it. Something else that happened is I, of course, mastered the art of self-awareness. I became so self-aware. I knew exactly what was happening in my response to situation. I knew exactly how I wanted things done. It was very definite I became so freaking self-aware. And because of that, I also developed a high level of emotional intelligence. I respond to situations from a place of intelligence now. I'm very careful on how I showcase or display my different feelings and emotions. And I tell people who are around me, you really cannot read me. Because sometimes when everyone is expecting me to be angry at something, that's when I'm like, not today, devil. Not today. And one of the final things that happened to me was I started to see life from a very beautiful place. I wanted to wake up in the morning. I looked forward to waking up every day. I still look forward to waking up every day. I'm just all rounder, very, very happy, and I'm very grateful. And with every passing day, I see the reward and benefit of going through the process of healing my childhood traumas. It wasn't an easy experience. It wasn't an easy process, but I decided that I was going to do it, and now I'm on the other side, and I'm so grateful that I did everything within my power to make it possible. If you feel or believe that you have some traumas that are affecting you now as an adult, I ask that the very first place that you start is by reading that book by Damien Blair called Inner Child Healing. It will really provide a lot of perspective into some of the traumas or some of the things that you may be experiencing now and as an adult, and how you too can deal with them as well. That's pretty much all I have for you for today's episode. I'm excited to share my story, and I would really love to read from you all what traumas you may be dealing with. You can email me personally if you don't want to leave it in the comment section. I'll be glad to read from you. The email address will be in the description box down below. I'll see you all next time with another episode. Until then, remember to stay very, very elegant. Take care.